Every night, a small puppy curled up outside the doors of the town hospital, braving the cold and darkness. The golden glow of the hospital lights reflected off the icy pavement as patients and visitors hurried in and out. Bundled in coats and scarves, amidst the bustling scene, one figure stood out, a small puppy with matted fur and tired eyes. He lay curled up just outside the revolving doors, staring intently at the entrance as though waiting for someone. Despite the bitter cold, the little dog didn't seek warmth or food. His unwavering gaze seemed to hold a story of loss and longing. Dr. Ethan Carter, a senior pediatrician known for his nonsense demeanor, noticed the puppy for the first time one evening as he exited the hospital. The dog's gaze stopped him in his tracks. "What's he doing here?" Ethan muttered under his breath, tightening his scarf. A nurse passing by overheard him. "He's been here every evening for weeks, Dr. Carter. Poor thing must be waiting for someone inside." Ethan frowned, his gaze lingering on the small creature. A pang of sympathy pierced his usually stoic demeanor. The dog's eyes seemed to hold a story, one Ethan couldn't yet understand. The following evening, Ethan exited the hospital again, his mind heavy with thoughts of overdue reports and a full schedule for the next day. But there, in the exact same spot, was the puppy. Snow had begun to fall, tiny flakes sticking to the dog's fur, but he remained still, his focus never wavering from the entrance. Ethan hesitated. He wasn't an animal lover, nor did he have the time to become one, but something about the dog tugged at his heart. He walked over cautiously, crouching down a few feet away. "You're still here, huh?" he said softly, his breath forming white clouds in the freezing air. The puppy lifted his head slightly, ears twitching, but didn't move closer. His eyes, deep pools of emotion, met Ethan's. The doctor felt a lump in his throat, an unfamiliar surge of emotion rising within him. "Do you have an owner?" Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The dog didn't respond, but his eyes seemed to say everything. The janitor from the previous night strolled by, broom in hand. "You talking to that mutt again, Doc?" he teased. "That dog's been here for weeks. Some folks say he's waiting for someone, a patient, maybe." Ethan glanced back at the hospital, the thought gnawing at him. Was the puppy's owner inside, lying in one of the sterile hospital beds? Or worse, had they already passed, leaving this loyal companion behind? The next few nights, Ethan began to notice the puppy more and more. Each evening as he left the hospital, the dog was there. He never barked, never begged, just sat quietly, watching. Ethan found himself lingering by the entrance longer than usual, trying to piece together the mystery. One particularly cold evening, unable to bear the sight of the shivering pup, Ethan brought him a small blanket from his car. "Here, this should help," he said, draping it gently over the dog. To his surprise, the puppy allowed it, his big, trusting eyes briefly meeting Ethan's before turning back to the hospital doors. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. The image of the lonely dog haunted him. Was he neglecting someone in need? His job was to save lives, to provide care, but here was a life outside his hospital, seemingly slipping through the cracks. The next morning, Ethan made a decision. During his lunch break, he asked the receptionist at the front desk if anyone had reported a missing dog. "Not that I know of," she replied, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "You think he belongs to a patient?" Ethan asked, his mind racing. "Let me know if anyone asks about him." By the end of the week, Ethan's curiosity had turned into quiet determination. He started leaving food and water for the puppy each night, noting with satisfaction that the bowls were empty by morning. But despite his efforts, the dog remained distant, his loyalty tied to the hospital's doors. One evening, as Ethan sat in his car preparing to drive home, he saw the dog again, curled up in his usual spot. The doctor sighed, gripping the steering wheel tightly. "Why won't you leave?" he muttered to himself. The question wasn't born out of frustration, but a growing sense of helplessness. He felt like he was failing this tiny creature who seemed to be waiting for something or someone Ethan couldn't provide. It wasn't until the following weekend that Ethan's routine was broken. As he approached the hospital's entrance, he noticed a group of nurses huddled near the dog. One of them, a kind-hearted woman named Emily, was stroking the puppy's head. "He finally lets someone touch him," she said, smiling as Ethan approached. "It's like he's starting to trust us." Ethan knelt down, his hand hovering just above the dog's fur. "Is that true, buddy? Are you warming up to us?" Slowly, he reached out, his fingers brushing against the soft, matted coat. The puppy didn't pull away. Instead, he looked up at Ethan, his eyes brimming with a mixture of hope and sadness. In that moment, Ethan knew he couldn't ignore the dog any longer. He had to find out the truth. Why was this little soul so devoted to the hospital? And what or who was he waiting for? The next morning, Dr. Ethan Carter arrived at the hospital earlier than usual. He had spent most of the night thinking about the puppy. Who was this dog waiting for? And why? He couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about loyalty, but something deeper. He stopped by the reception desk again. "Any updates on a missing dog?" he asked, hoping for a breakthrough. The receptionist shook her head. "Sorry, Dr. Carter. No reports, no inquiries. It's like he just showed up and made this place his home." Ethan sighed, glancing toward the hospital entrance where he knew the dog would be. The idea of leaving, the mystery unsolved, was gnawing at him. He decided to take a proactive step. After his morning rounds, Ethan approached Emily, the nurse who had connected with the dog the night before. "Emily," he began, his tone resolute, "I think we need to do more. That dog isn't here by accident." Emily tilted her head. "You really care about him, don't you?" Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "It's hard to explain. There's something about him. I feel like we're missing something important." Emily smiled. "Well, I have a friend at the animal shelter. Maybe they can help us check if he's chipped." "That's a start," Ethan agreed. "Let's do it." That evening, Emily brought a leash and coaxed the dog into letting her slip it on. To everyone's surprise, the puppy followed without resistance, his small frame trembling slightly as they led him inside. Ethan felt a pang of guilt watching the dog's nervous movements. He didn't want to scare him, but this was necessary. At the shelter, the staff scanned the dog for a microchip. "Nothing," the technician said, frowning. "He's not registered." "Anywhere," Ethan clenched his jaw. "So, what now?" "We could post his picture online," Emily suggested. "See if anyone recognizes him." The shelter staff agreed, snapping a photo of the dog and posting it to local community boards and social media. "If he has an owner, they'll see this," the technician assured them. Ethan nodded, but deep down, he wasn't convinced. If the dog had an owner, why had no one come looking for him all this time? The following days brought no answers, and Ethan grew increasingly attached to the little dog. Though he hadn't brought him home, he found himself spending more time outside the hospital with him. The dog's quiet presence was oddly comforting, a contrast to the constant chaos of the pediatric ward. One evening, as Ethan sat on the steps beside the dog, he spoke aloud, his voice soft and contemplative. "You know, I never really thought much about loyalty until I met you. My job, it's all about routine, fixing things, moving on. But you're different. You're staying here, no matter what." The dog tilted his head slightly, as if listening. Ethan chuckled. "You're a better listener than most of my colleagues." The humor faded as he looked into the puppy's eyes, which seemed to hold a depth of sadness and hope that Ethan couldn't ignore. "Who are you waiting for?" he whispered. The mystery deepened the next day, when Ethan overheard a conversation between two elderly patients in the waiting area. "That dog reminds me of a story I heard," one of them said, her voice low and thoughtful, "about a dog that waited for his owner outside a train station for years after he passed away." Ethan froze. Could that be the case here? Had the dog's owner died, leaving him with nowhere to go? The thought sent a chill through him. Determined to find out more, Ethan asked Emily to help him check patient records. "I know it's a long shot," he admitted, "but what if the dog's owner was admitted here and never made it out?" Emily hesitated. "That's a sensitive area, Ethan, but I can see how much this means to you. Let's see what we can find." They spent hours combing through records from the past month, looking for any patients who might match the timeline of the dog's arrival. Finally, Emily gasped, "Ethan, look at this." She pointed to the file of an elderly man named Arthur Bennett. He had been admitted 3 weeks earlier after a heart attack and had passed away shortly after. "He lived alone," Emily said, scanning the notes. "No next of kin." Ethan's stomach sank. Could this be it? Was the dog his? "It's possible," Emily replied, her voice somber. "But how would the dog have known to come here?" Ethan shook his head. "I don't know, but I think we need to look into this more." That evening, Ethan found himself sitting on the hospital steps once again, the dog curled up beside him. "Arthur Bennett," he murmured, testing the name. The dog's ears twitched slightly, and Ethan's breath caught. "Is that it? Was he your person?" The dog didn't move, but his eyes seemed to soften, as if acknowledging the name. Ethan felt a lump rise in his throat. "If that's true, then I'm sorry. I'm sorry you lost him." For the first time, Ethan reached out and stroked the dog's fur, his movements gentle and careful. The puppy leaned into his touch, and Ethan felt an unexpected warmth spread through his chest. "You're not alone anymore," he said quietly. "I'll make sure of that." Ethan couldn't stop thinking about the name Arthur Bennett. If the dog belonged to him, there had to be more to the story. Driven by a mix of curiosity and determination, he decided to visit Arthur's listed address, hoping to find clues about the bond between the man and the dog. The house was a modest single-story home at the edge of town. The garden was overgrown, the paint peeling from the shutters, but it still held a sense of warmth, like a place that had been loved. Ethan hesitated at the door, unsure of what he was expecting to find. After a moment, he knocked. No answer. He tried the handle and found it locked. Feeling slightly awkward, he stepped back and scanned the area. A neighbor watering her plants nearby noticed him. "Can I help you?" she called out, her voice wary. Ethan raised a hand in greeting. "Hi, I'm Dr. Carter. I work at the hospital where Arthur Bennett was admitted. I've been trying to learn more about him." The woman lowered her watering can, her expression softening. "Arthur, oh, bless his soul. Such a kind man. Always kept to himself, but you'd never meet anyone more loyal." "Did he have a dog?" Ethan asked. The woman's face brightened. Oh yes. A little one, brown, with the sweetest eyes. That dog followed Arthur everywhere. You wouldn't see one without the other. Ethan's heart sank. Do you know what happened to the dog after Arthur passed? She frowned, wiping her hands on her apron. I assumed he ran off. Poor thing must have been heartbroken. Ethan glanced toward the hospital, visible in the distance. He has been waiting outside the hospital for weeks. The woman gasped. He's still there. Oh, that dog loved Arthur. More than anything, if he's there, it's because he doesn't know Arthur's gone. He's probably waiting for him to come back at the hospital. Ethan shared the revelation with Emily. It all makes sense now, he said, pacing the break room. The dog's loyalty wasn't random. He's grieving. Emily nodded, her expression somber. But what do we do now? He can't stay outside forever. I don't know yet, Ethan admitted, but I feel responsible for him. Arthur's gone, and there's no one else. Maybe I can take him in. Emily gave him a small smile. You've grown attached, haven't you? Ethan sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I guess I have. He's been through so much. I can't just leave him like this. That evening, Ethan approached the dog with a leash and a soft voice. Hey, buddy, he murmured. How about coming with me for a while? I'll take care of you. The dog hesitated, his tail wagging uncertainly. Slowly, he let Ethan slip the leash over his neck. For the first time, the little dog followed him willingly, not to a shelter, but to Ethan's car. At home, Ethan set up a cozy bed in the corner of his living room and filled a bowl with fresh food and water. The dog sniffed around cautiously before settling into his new spot. It's not the hospital, Ethan said softly, crouching beside him. But I hope you'll feel safe here. Over the next few days, the dog began to adjust. He followed Ethan from room to room, his trust growing with each passing moment. Ethan couldn't help but feel a deep sense of connection with the little creature. For the first time in years, his home felt less empty, but the peace didn't last. One evening, as Ethan was finishing dinner, he noticed the dog sitting by the door, his tail wagging anxiously. What is it, buddy? He asked, setting down his fork. The dog whined softly, pawing at the door. Ethan frowned, opening it to let him out into the yard. Instead of wandering off, the dog turned and looked at him, his eyes pleading. Then he darted toward the street, stopping to look back, as if urging Ethan to follow. Confused but intrigued, Ethan grabbed his coat and followed the dog down the quiet street. The little dog led him through winding alleys and across intersections until they arrived at a park on the outskirts of town. What are we doing here? Ethan asked, his breath visible in the chilly night air. The dog barked softly and trotted ahead. Ethan followed him to a secluded bench under a street lamp. There, sitting on the bench, was an envelope with the name Arthur Bennett scrawled across the front. Ethan's heart raced as he picked it up. Inside was a handwritten letter, the ink smudged in places but still legible. The opening words sent chills down his spine. My dearest companion, if you're reading this, it means I've left this world. But I need you to know how much you meant to me. Ethan read the letter aloud, his voice trembling. It was a heartfelt message from Arthur, written as though he was speaking directly to his beloved dog. It spoke of gratitude, love, and a wish for the dog to find happiness even in his absence. By the time Ethan finished reading, tears were streaming down his face. The little dog sat quietly beside him, his head resting on Ethan's knee, as if he too understood the weight of the words. Arthur loved you so much, Ethan whispered, stroking the dog's fur. And now, I promise to honor that love. The discovery of Arthur's letter weighed heavily on Ethan's mind as he drove home. The little dog curled up in the passenger seat beside him. The letter had confirmed what Ethan already suspected. This dog was more than just a stray. He had been someone's entire world, and now he was left behind, searching for answers he might never find. Back at the house, Ethan placed the letter carefully on his kitchen counter. He brewed a cup of tea, needing something to calm the swirl of emotions inside him. The dog sat by his feet, his tail thumping softly against the floor. "You really are incredible, aren't you?" Ethan said, reaching down to scratch behind the dog's ears. "I don't think I've ever met anyone as loyal as you." The dog tilted his head, as if listening, and let out a soft whine. Ethan chuckled. Okay, I get it. You're hungry." He filled the dog's bowl with food and sat beside him while he ate, the rhythmic crunching oddly comforting. As the days went by, Ethan noticed a change in himself. He had always been dedicated to his work, but for the first time, he felt a sense of purpose beyond the hospital walls. Taking care of the dog brought a new rhythm to his life. Morning walks, shared meals, and quiet evenings together on the couch. It wasn't long before he found himself calling the dog Buddy, a name that seemed to fit his brave and steadfast personality. But Buddy's adjustment to this new life wasn't without its challenges. Though he had grown attached to Ethan, there were moments when his loyalty to Arthur resurfaced. Some evenings, Buddy would sit by the door, staring out into the darkness, as if waiting for someone who would never return. Other times, he would bark at the sound of a passing car, his ears perking up hopefully before drooping in disappointment. One night, as Ethan worked on paperwork at the kitchen table, he noticed Buddy pacing restlessly. "What's wrong, Buddy?" Ethan asked, setting down his pen. Buddy barked once, then trotted over to the counter where Arthur's letter lay. He paused at the edge of the counter, looking up at Ethan with pleading eyes. "You miss him, don't you?" Ethan whispered, kneeling beside Buddy. "I can't bring Arthur back, but I promise I'll do everything I can to make you happy." Buddy licked Ethan's hand, his tail wagging faintly. Ethan took that as a sign of trust, a fragile, growing bond between them. Meanwhile, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Arthur's story. The letter, heartfelt as it was, hinted at a deeper struggle. Why had Arthur been in the hospital? What had happened in the days leading up to his passing? The questions gnawed at Ethan, compelling him to dig deeper. He returned to the hospital and reviewed Arthur's file. It revealed that Arthur had been battling a terminal illness for months, a fact he had kept hidden from nearly everyone. His final days had been spent in solitude. His only comfort, the companionship of Buddy. The realization hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. Arthur hadn't just loved Buddy, he had relied on him in a world that had grown increasingly lonely. Buddy had been Arthur's one constant. Ethan shared his findings with Emily, who listened intently. "It's heartbreaking," she said, shaking her head, "but it makes sense now. That dog wasn't just loyal, he was grieving." Ethan nodded. "I want to do something for Arthur. For Buddy, they both deserve better than what happened." Emily smiled softly. "You already are, Ethan. You're giving Buddy a new chance at life. And I think Arthur would have wanted that." Inspired, Ethan decided to honor Arthur's memory in a tangible way. He reached out to the neighbor who had spoken so fondly of Arthur and asked for her help. Together, they planned a small memorial service in Arthur's favorite park. Word spread quickly, and soon other neighbors and acquaintances who had known. Arthur began offering to contribute, bringing flowers, sharing stories, and even donating to a local animal shelter in his name. On the day of the memorial, Ethan brought Buddy to the park. The little dog seemed to sense the significance of the gathering, sitting quietly by Ethan's side as people shared their memories of Arthur. Some spoke of his kindness, others of his quiet strength. Many mentioned Buddy, noting how inseparable the two had been. When it was Ethan's turn to speak, he held Arthur's letter in his hand. "Arthur may no longer be with us," he began, his voice steady despite the emotion swelling in his chest. "But his love and loyalty live on in Buddy. This little dog is a testament to the kind of man. Arthur was someone who gave everything he had, even in his final days." The crowd murmured in agreement, and a wave of warmth washed over Ethan as he looked down at Buddy. "I promise to take care of him," he continued, his voice firm, "to honor Arthur's memory by giving Buddy the life he deserves." As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Ethan felt a profound sense of closure. The memorial had not only honored Arthur, but also deepened his connection to Buddy. For the first time, Buddy seemed truly at ease, resting his head on Ethan's lap as they watched the crowd disperse. That night, back at home, Ethan tucked Arthur's letter into a frame and placed it on the mantel above the fireplace. It wasn't just a piece of paper, it was a symbol of the bond between a man and his dog, and the legacy of love they had left behind. With the memorial service behind them, Ethan felt a renewed sense of responsibility for Buddy. The little dog had become an integral part of his life, and their bond grew stronger with each passing day. Yet, as comforting as Buddy's presence there was a lingering question Ethan couldn't shake. Why had Arthur left Buddy at the hospital rather than arranging for someone to take care of him directly? This mystery lingered in the back of Ethan's mind, growing more insistent as he pieced together Arthur's story. One evening, as Ethan sat on the couch with Buddy curled up beside him, he decided to dig deeper. Arthur's neighbor had mentioned a sister, someone Arthur had been estranged from for years. If anyone had more insight into Arthur's final days, it would be her. The next day, Ethan tracked down Arthur's sister, Eleanor Bennett, using the hospital records and information provided by the neighbor. He found her living in a modest home on the outskirts of the city. With Buddy by his side, Ethan approached the front door and knocked. A moment later, the door creaked open, revealing a woman in her late 50s with tired eyes and a wary expression. "Can I help you?" she asked cautiously. "Ms. Bennett, my name is Ethan Carter. I'm a doctor at the hospital where your brother, Arthur, passed away." Ethan hesitated, unsure of how to broach the subject. "I've been taking care of his dog, Buddy, and I wanted to learn more about Arthur's final days." Eleanor's eyes softened at the mention of Buddy. "Buddy," she whispered, her voice tinged with emotion. "I haven't seen that little dog since Arthur fell ill. Please, come in." Inside, Eleanor explained the fractured relationship she'd had with her brother. They had grown apart over the years due to a misunderstanding about their parents' inheritance. Arthur had always been stubborn, and Eleanor admitted that her pride had kept her from reaching out to mend things. "When I heard he was sick, I thought about visiting," she said, her voice trembling. "But I didn't know how he'd react. I didn't want to make things worse." Ethan listened carefully, noting the regret in Eleanor's voice. "He spoke about you in his letter," he offered gently. "It was clear he cared about you, even if things were complicated." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears, and she reached out to pat Buddy's head. "I should have been there for him," she murmured. And for Buddy, Arthur loved this little dog more than anything. Their conversation took an unexpected turn when Eleanor revealed something Ethan hadn't known. Arthur had been trying to reconcile with her in his final months. He had left messages, sent letters, and even attempted to visit her home. "But I was too afraid to answer," Eleanor admitted. "I thought it was too late." Hearing this, Ethan felt a surge of determination. "It's not too late to honor his memory," he said. "You can help me take care of Buddy and ensure Arthur's story isn't forgotten." Eleanor nodded, her resolve strengthening. "I want to make things right for Arthur and for Buddy." As Eleanor and Ethan began to collaborate, new challenges emerged. Eleanor suggested visiting Arthur's old home to retrieve any items he might have left behind for Buddy. The house had been locked since Arthur's hospitalization, and the thought of going through his belongings was daunting for both of them. Still, they agreed it was necessary. The visit to Arthur's home was an emotional one. The small, cluttered house was filled with memories of a man who had lived simply but deeply. Buddy immediately recognized the space, wagging his tail excitedly as he sniffed around. In the living room, they found a worn-out blanket that Buddy seemed particularly drawn to. Eleanor folded it carefully, her hands trembling in a drawer. Near the kitchen, Ethan discovered a box filled with photographs and letters. Among them was a journal Arthur had kept during his illness. Flipping through its pages, Ethan was struck by the depth of Arthur's love for Buddy. "This dog saved me." One entry read, "He gave me a reason to keep going, even when everything felt hopeless." The journal also revealed something unexpected. Arthur had been planning to set up a fund for animal shelters in his community, a way to give back to the creatures that had brought him so much comfort. However, his illness had progressed too quickly for him to finalize the details. Ethan shared this discovery with Eleanor, who immediately latched onto the idea. "We have to make this happen," she said firmly. "It's what Arthur would have wanted." But turning Arthur's dream into reality wasn't going to be easy. Ethan and Eleanor began reaching out to local shelters and organizations, pitching the idea of a memorial fund in Arthur's name. They encountered resistance at first. Some shelters were skeptical, others lacked the resources to participate. But Ethan's passion for the project eventually won people over. Buddy became the face of their campaign, his loyalty and resilience inspiring everyone who heard his story. A photo of Buddy sitting beside Arthur's framed letter became the centerpiece of their promotional materials, and donations began to pour in from neighbors, hospital staff, and even strangers who had heard about Arthur's story. As the fund grew, Ethan noticed a change in Eleanor. The guilt and sadness that had once consumed her began to lift, replaced by a sense of purpose. She started volunteering at a local shelter, spending time with dogs who reminded her of Buddy. Ethan, too, felt a renewed sense of fulfillment. Balancing his work at the hospital with his efforts for the fund wasn't easy, but every time he saw Buddy wagging his tail or received a thank you note from a shelter, he knew it was worth it. As the memorial fund for Arthur's legacy gained momentum, Ethan and Eleanor found themselves working more closely together. Their shared mission to honor Arthur brought them a sense of healing, but it also exposed deep-seated emotions and unresolved regrets that neither had anticipated. One afternoon, Ethan invited Eleanor to visit the hospital where Arthur had spent his final days. He believed it would help her connect with the brother she had lost and give her closure. Eleanor hesitated, at first visibly uneasy. "I don't know if I can face it," she admitted, her voice trembling. "You don't have to do this alone," Ethan reassured her. "Buddy and I will be right there with you." Eleanor looked at Buddy, who wagged his tail enthusiastically, as if encouraging her to take the step. She nodded, her resolve firming. "Okay, let's do it." At the hospital, Ethan led Eleanor to the ward where Arthur had been treated. The sterile halls and faint smell of antiseptic brought back a flood of memories for Ethan. But he focused on Eleanor, whose eyes darted around nervously. They stopped outside the room where Arthur had stayed. "This is it," Ethan said softly, gesturing to the door. Eleanor hesitated, her hand hovering over the handle. "What if I can't do this?" she whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. Ethan placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Take your time. Arthur would understand." With a deep breath, Eleanor pushed the door open. The room was empty, but it still bore traces of Arthur's presence, a framed picture of Buddy left by the bedside, a stack of books he had been reading, and the faint scent of lavender from the air freshener he'd favored. Eleanor stepped inside, her composure crumbling as she saw the photo of Buddy. "He really loved you, didn't he?" she said, kneeling down to stroke the dog's head. Buddy wagged his tail and licked her hand, as if offering comfort. Ethan watched, silently giving Eleanor space to process her emotions. After a few moments, she stood and turned to him. "Thank you for bringing me here," she said. "I needed this." As they left the hospital, Eleanor opened up about her feelings of guilt. "I wasted so much time being angry with Arthur," she confessed. "And for what? A few dollars from our parents' estate. It seems so trivial now." Ethan nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "Regret can be heavy," he said, "but it's what we do with it that matters. You're honoring Arthur's memory now, and that's what counts." Eleanor smiled faintly. "I just hope it's enough." Meanwhile, the memorial fund was beginning to attract attention beyond their community. A local news outlet reached out to Ethan and Eleanor, asking to feature Buddy's story as part of a segment on the healing power of animals. Ethan was hesitant at first, worried about exposing Buddy to too much attention, but Eleanor saw it as an opportunity to expand Arthur's legacy. This could bring in so much support for the shelters, she argued. It's what Arthur would have wanted. Ethan agreed reluctantly, and the interview was scheduled. On the day of the shoot, Buddy was a natural, charming the reporters with his friendly demeanor and heartwarming story. The segment aired later that week, and the response was overwhelming. Donations poured in, and people from across the state reached out to express their admiration for Arthur's dedication to animals. Despite the success of the campaign, Ethan found himself grappling with his own emotions. Caring for Buddy and working on the fund had filled a void in his life, but it also forced him to confront the loneliness he had buried beneath his work. He began to wonder if his connection with Buddy was more about filling his own emotional gaps than truly honoring Arthur's wishes. One evening, as Ethan sat on the couch with Buddy, Eleanor stopped by unexpectedly. She carried a box of Arthur's belongings, which she had been sorting through. "I thought you might want this," she said, handing it to Ethan. Inside the box were Arthur's handwritten letters, photos, and a collection of dog training guides. Ethan pulled out one of the letters, addressed to whomever takes care of Buddy, as he read Arthur's heartfelt words of gratitude for whoever would love and protect Buddy. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. "He trusted you," Eleanor said softly, "and I can see why." Ethan looked at Eleanor, his voice thick with emotion. "I've been struggling," he admitted. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing this for Buddy or for myself." Eleanor placed a hand on his arm. "It's okay to feel that way. We're human. But what you're doing for Buddy and for Arthur goes beyond that. You've given Buddy a home, and you've given Arthur's story a voice. That's not selfish. That's love. Her words resonated deeply with Ethan. For the first time, he allowed himself to fully embrace the bond he had formed with Buddy, not as a replacement for the relationships he lacked, but as a testament to the love and loyalty Arthur had instilled. In the little dog, the success of the memorial fund had brought renewed purpose to both Ethan and Eleanor, but it also attracted unforeseen challenges. With Buddy's story gaining widespread attention, the shelter received an influx of adoption applications, donations, and even offers to feature Buddy in national campaigns. What seemed like an opportunity soon became a logistical and emotional strain. One day, as Ethan reviewed emails at the shelter, an unexpected visitor, a rider man in his late 40s, dressed sharply in a tailored suit. He introduced himself as Victor Steele, a representative from a high-profile marketing agency. His proposal was bold. Buddy would become the face of a nationwide campaign for pet adoption awareness, complete with commercials, public appearances, and merchandise. Ethan hesitated. Buddy is more than just a story. He's family. I don't want to exploit him. Victor leaned in, his tone persuasive. This isn't about exploitation. It's about amplifying his impact. Think of how many lives Buddy could change, both animals and humans. It's what Arthur would have wanted. Eleanor, who had joined the meeting, was torn. The campaign could bring unprecedented attention to their cause, but it also risked overexposing Buddy and detracting from Arthur's personal story. We need time to think about this, she said firmly. That evening, Ethan and Eleanor debated the proposal. Eleanor leaned toward accepting, emphasizing the potential benefits. This could fund the shelter for years. We could save so many animals. But Ethan was reluctant. Buddy has been through enough. I don't want to turn him into a commodity. Their argument grew heated, unearthing deeper tensions. Eleanor accused Ethan of holding back out of fear, while Ethan questioned whether Eleanor truly understood the emotional weight of their journey with Buddy. As their voices rose, Buddy, sensing the tension, whimpered softly and nudged Ethan's leg. The gesture broke the intensity of the moment, and both Ethan and Eleanor fell silent, guilt washing over them. Maybe we're too close to this, Eleanor admitted quietly. We need to make a decision that's best for Buddy, not for us. The next day, as Ethan pondered the campaign offer, a stranger approached him at the shelter, a young woman named Olivia. She introduced herself as a veterinary technician who had known Arthur through his volunteer work. Olivia revealed a surprising detail. Arthur had once considered starting a mobile veterinary clinic for underserved areas, inspired by Buddy's ability to bring comfort to those in need. Ethan was taken aback. He never mentioned this to me. Olivia smiled. It was just an idea he was exploring, but he talked about it with such passion. He wanted to help people and their pets, no matter where they were. The revelation stirred something in Ethan. It added a new layer to Arthur's legacy, one that went beyond Buddy's story. Ethan shared this with Eleanor, and together they wondered if this could be a better way to honor Arthur's vision. As they began researching the feasibility of a mobile clinic, strange developments began to unfold. Ethan noticed unfamiliar faces lingering near the shelter, and one evening, he found a note slipped under the door. Buddy doesn't belong to you. Alarmed, Ethan showed the note to Eleanor. What do you think this means? He asked, his voice edged with worry. Eleanor's expression darkened. Do you think someone's claiming to have a connection to Buddy? Maybe they think he's valuable because of the publicity. Ethan couldn't shake the unease that settled over him. They decided to install security cameras around the shelter and notify local authorities. But the incident weighed heavily on both of them. Days later, Victor Steele called, pressing for an answer on the campaign. Ethan and Eleanor agreed to meet with him one last time to clarify their concerns. The meeting quickly took a surprising turn when Victor revealed that another organization had reached out, claiming to be Buddy's original owner and threatening legal action if Buddy wasn't returned. This could complicate everything, Victor said. Ethan's heart sank. Buddy had been Arthur's loyal companion for years. There was no doubt about his rightful place. But the idea of someone else trying to take him away was terrifying. Do they have proof? Eleanor asked, her voice tight. Victor shook his head. Not yet. But with all the attention Buddy has received, it's not uncommon for people to fabricate claims. You need to be prepared. That evening, Ethan sat alone with Buddy, stroking his fur as the dog lay curled at his feet. What are we going to do, Buddy? He murmured. Buddy looked up at him with trusting eyes, and Ethan felt a surge of determination. He decided to dig deeper into Arthur's records, hoping to find something that would irrefutably prove Buddy's history. Late into the night, Ethan searched through Arthur's old documents, eventually uncovering a worn envelope containing adoption papers for Buddy. The papers detailed Arthur's adoption of Buddy from a rescue organization years ago, complete with photos and signatures. Relief washed over Ethan, but it was short-lived. He realized that if this fabricated claim gained traction, it could still harm their mission and overshadow Arthur's legacy. The tension reached a breaking point when Eleanor received a call from Victor. The campaign was moving forward with or without their involvement, using another dog as the face of the project. This doesn't feel right, Eleanor said after relaying the news to Ethan. They're exploiting the story without understanding what it means. Ethan nodded. Then we'll do it our way. Arthur's dream of a mobile clinic, let's make it happen. As they doubled down on their plans for the clinic, Ethan and Eleanor faced the mounting pressures of the fabricated claim, the campaign controversy, and their personal struggles. But through it all, Buddy remained their anchor, his unwavering loyalty reminding them of the love and resilience Arthur had cherished. Ethan and Eleanor's decision to pursue Arthur's dream of a mobile veterinary clinic reignited their passion for their mission. But the challenges ahead loomed larger than ever. Despite uncovering Buddy's adoption papers, the fabricated claim against his ownership gained attention online, spurred by the widespread publicity of his story. Anonymous commentators questioned their integrity, and some even accused them of exploiting Buddy for financial gain. To combat the negativity, Ethan and Eleanor decided to share Arthur's story in its entirety, his love for animals, his vision for underserved communities, and how Buddy had been a symbol of hope for him during his darkest times. They planned a heartfelt event at the shelter, inviting local supporters, former colleagues of Arthur, and even the media. It was a chance to reclaim the narrative. On the day of the event, the shelter buzzed with activity. Volunteers arranged photographs of Arthur and Buddy, showcasing their shared journey, while Eleanor finalized the presentation. Buddy seemed to sense the importance of the occasion, staying close to Ethan and greeting every visitor with his gentle presence. As the guests gathered, Ethan stood in front of a screen displaying a slideshow of Arthur's life. Taking a deep breath, he began. Arthur wasn't just a dog lover, he was a dreamer. He believed in creating a world where every animal had a chance to heal and every person could find solace in their companionship. Buddy was a cornerstone of that dream. The audience listened intently as Ethan recounted Arthur's aspirations for the mobile clinic and how Buddy had inspired him. Eleanor added, "This isn't just about one dog. It's about the connection we share with animals and the transformative power they bring to our lives." Arthur wanted that connection to reach everyone, especially those who needed it most. By the end of the event, the room was filled with applause and renewed support. Donations poured in, and local businesses pledged resources for the mobile clinic. It was a turning point, but not everyone in the crowd was there to cheer. As the event wrapped up, a woman approached Ethan and Eleanor with a guarded expression, introducing herself as Olivia. She claimed to be part of the family who had originally fostered Buddy before Arthur adopted him. Her presence was unexpected, and her words carried an edge of resentment. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Olivia began, "but I need you to understand that Buddy wasn't always yours. My parents cared for him first. They loved him, and when circumstances forced us to give him up, it broke our hearts." Ethan studied her carefully. There was no malice in her tone, but her words added a layer of complexity to the story. "I'm sorry for what you went through," he said sincerely. "But Arthur adopted Buddy legally, and they shared a bond that was unbreakable." Olivia nodded, her eyes softening. "I've seen how much Buddy means to you. I just wanted you to know where he came from. He brought joy to my family before he brought it to yours." Eleanor stepped forward, extending her hand. "Thank you for sharing that with us. It's clear Buddy has touched many lives. We'd love to hear more about his time with your family, if you're willing." Olivia hesitated, but eventually agreed to meet again. It was a delicate connection that hinted at new perspectives on Buddy's story. Meanwhile, the controversy surrounding Victor Steele's campaign escalated. The alternative dog chosen for the project bore an uncanny resemblance to Buddy, and the marketing materials heavily implied a connection to Arthur's story. Outraged, Ethan confronted Victor in a tense phone call. "You're misleading people," Ethan said, his voice firm. "This isn't about awareness anymore. It's about profit." Victor's response was dismissive. "The public loves a good story. If you're not willing to play ball, don't blame me for finding someone who will." The call left Ethan fuming, but it also strengthened his resolve. He and Eleanor focused their energy on the mobile clinic, determined to build something authentic that honored Arthur's legacy. In the weeks that followed, Olivia became a surprising ally. She shared old photos of Buddy as a puppy, along with anecdotes about his early life. These stories painted a fuller picture of Buddy's journey, one that bridged two families united by their love for him. Olivia's involvement also brought unexpected insights into Arthur's character. "He visited us after the adoption," she revealed one evening. "He wanted to make sure we were okay with the transition. He even sent updates about Buddy for years." Arthur had a way of making people feel seen. Ethan and Eleanor were moved by this revelation. It deepened their understanding of Arthur's kindness and inspired them to incorporate a similar ethos into the mobile clinic, offering not just care for animals, but emotional support for the people connected to them. As the mobile clinic plans progressed, unexpected partnerships emerged. A local veterinary college offered to provide interns, while a logistics company donated a van for the clinic's use. The community's involvement became a testament to Arthur's enduring influence. However, the fabricated ownership claim resurfaced in the form of legal threats. An anonymous party filed a petition alleging that Buddy's adoption had procedural irregularities. Though Ethan and Eleanor knew the claim was baseless, the legal process threatened to stall their progress. Faced with this new challenge, Ethan reached out to Olivia for advice. Her connections within the local animal welfare community proved invaluable. "Let me help," she offered. "Buddy deserves to stay where he belongs." Her involvement marked a shift in their relationship, transforming an initial tension into a partnership rooted in mutual respect for Buddy's legacy. The challenges, alliances, and emotional bonds formed during this period set the stage for a critical turning point. The fabricated claims and Victor's exploitative campaign were no longer just obstacles. They became catalysts for Ethan and Eleanor to solidify their vision for the mobile clinic and defend Arthur's dream with renewed vigor. The fabricated legal claims surrounding Buddy's adoption intensified, pulling Ethan and Eleanor into a whirlwind of paperwork, court filings, and public scrutiny. Victor Steele seized the opportunity, further exploiting the controversy to amplify his campaign. His advertisements blatantly hinted that Buddy's current home might not be legitimate, stoking doubts among the community. "What if we lose Buddy?" Eleanor voiced her fear one late evening as they sat in the shelter's office, the soft glow of a desk lamp illuminating stacks of documents. Buddy lay at their feet, his head resting on Ethan's shoe, seemingly unaware of the turmoil surrounding him. Ethan reached down, scratching behind Buddy's ears. "We won't let that happen," he said with quiet determination. "Arthur trusted us, and we'll fight for Buddy just like he'd fight for us." The legal battle began to weigh on them. Court hearings loomed, and every moment spent away from Buddy felt like a betrayal. Olivia, who had become a staunch ally, offered to testify on their behalf, providing evidence of Arthur's proper adoption process and Buddy's well-being under their care. The night before their first hearing, an unexpected visitor arrived at the shelter. A courier delivered an envelope marked confidential. Inside was a letter from someone claiming to have insider knowledge of Victor Steele's operation. It detailed how Victor's team had fabricated the ownership claims and manufactured false documentation to sabotage Ethan and Eleanor's efforts. "This could change everything," Eleanor said, her hands trembling as she read the letter aloud. "But how do we know it's real?" Ethan examined the documents enclosed. They included emails, internal memos, and receipts tied to Victor's team. "We'll have to validate these," he said cautiously. "But if this checks out, it's the proof we need to expose him." The following morning, Ethan and Eleanor presented the evidence to their lawyer, who immediately recognized its significance. "This isn't just about clearing Buddy's name," she said. "If these documents are real, Victor could face serious consequences." In court, Ethan and Eleanor stood firm, supported by Olivia and other community members who had rallied to their cause. The opposing side attempted to cast doubt on their claims, but their lawyer methodically dismantled the fabricated allegations, presenting the damning evidence against Victor's team. Victor's lawyer grew visibly uneasy as the judge scrutinized the documents. When questioned about the authenticity of the claims, Victor deflected, insisting he had acted in the best interest of animal welfare. However, the judge's skepticism was evident. The tension in the courtroom reached a boiling point when Olivia took the stand. Her heartfelt testimony painted a vivid picture of Buddy's journey from his time with her family to Arthur's unwavering love and care, and finally to the shelter that had become his home. Her words moved the audience, even drawing tears from some. "Buddy isn't just a dog," she concluded. "He's a symbol of hope and resilience, and he belongs with the people who honor Arthur's legacy." The judge's decision was swift. The fabricated claims were dismissed, and Victor's campaign was publicly discredited. Outside the courthouse, Ethan, Eleanor, and Olivia embraced as reporters swarmed them with questions. "Buddy is staying where he belongs," Ethan declared, his voice steady despite the emotional toll of the battle. "And Arthur's dream lives on." While the legal victory was a relief, it didn't mark the end of their struggles. Victor's fallout left a trail of mistrust in the community, and many questioned how such deception could occur. Determined to restore faith in their mission, Ethan and Eleanor decided to host a large-scale event to officially launch the mobile clinic. It would be a chance to reaffirm their commitment to Arthur's vision and celebrate the community's role in making it a reality. In the days leading up to the event, tensions simmered as remnants of Victor's influence lingered. Anonymous threats and attempts to discredit their work continued, but Ethan and Eleanor refused to be deterred. Instead, they channeled their energy into preparing for the launch, enlisting volunteers and spreading the word about the clinic's mission. On the morning of the event, Buddy seemed to embody the spirit of resilience that had defined their journey. His presence drew children and adults alike, his wagging tail and gentle demeanor bringing smiles to everyone he encountered. Ethan couldn't help but think of Arthur and how proud he would be to see this moment. The event drew an even larger crowd than expected. Local news outlets covered the story, and the shelter's social media pages were flooded with messages of support. Ethan and Eleanor stood side by side as they unveiled the clinic's sleek, customized vehicle adorned with Arthur's favorite quote, "Every animal deserves a second chance, and every person deserves the joy they bring." As the crowd erupted in applause, Ethan felt a wave of emotion. This wasn't just the culmination of their efforts, it was a testament to the power of community, perseverance, and the bond between humans and animals. Yet, amidst the celebration, a lingering question remained. How would Victor respond to his public disgrace? Ethan and Eleanor knew they couldn't let their guard down, especially with the clinic's future at stake. The celebration of the mobile clinic's launch was a resounding success, but Ethan and Eleanor remained vigilant. The shadow of Victor Steele's schemes loomed large, and they anticipated retaliation. True to their fears, Victor wasn't about to fade quietly into obscurity. In the days following his courtroom disgrace, he launched a smear campaign, leveraging his remaining influence to sow doubt about the shelter and the mobile clinic. Online, anonymous accounts began posting accusations, claiming the shelter mishandled funds, fabricated Buddy's adoption story, and exploited the community for personal gain. Victor's allies placed inflammatory ads in local newspapers, reigniting skepticism among those who hadn't fully embraced Ethan and Eleanor's vision. "His network is deeper than we thought," Eleanor said one evening, scrolling through the avalanche of false accusations. "If we let this fester, it could undo everything we've worked for." Ethan nodded grimly. "We can't fight him in the shadows. We need to bring everything to light and force him into the open." Ethan and Eleanor decided to organize a town hall meeting, inviting members of the community to hear the full story of Buddy, the mobile clinic, and Arthur's legacy. They also planned to present irrefutable evidence of Victor's manipulations, turning the tide of public opinion once and for all. Olivia volunteered to help, using her connections in the community to spread the word. "If we show them who Victor really is, they'll see the truth," she said, her voice resolute. On the night of the town hall, the venue was packed with concerned citizens, reporters, and local leaders. Victor Steele himself arrived, flanked by a few remaining loyalists, his smug demeanor made it clear he didn't expect to lose this battle. Ethan took the stage first, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. He began by recounting Arthur's dream of the shelter, the sacrifices he made, and the impact it had on countless animals and families. Eleanor followed, detailing the challenges they faced after Arthur's passing, including the smear campaign orchestrated by Victor. "Everything we've built has been for the animals and the community," Eleanor said, her voice tinged with emotion. "But there are those who would tear it all down for personal gain." When Olivia took the stage, she revealed the insider documents exposing Victor's fabrications. She displayed email exchanges, financial records, and testimonies from whistleblowers who had worked for Victor. Gasps rippled through the audience as the extent of his deceit came to light. "This isn't just about Buddy," Olivia concluded. "It's about standing up to corruption and protecting what's right." Victor stood abruptly, his face red with anger. "This is nothing but a smear job against me," he shouted, his voice echoing through the hall. "You can't prove half of this nonsense." Ethan calmly stepped forward, holding up the court's dismissal of Victor's fabricated claims. "We already did," he said firmly. "The court saw through your lies, and now the community does too." The tension in the room was palpable as Victor's allies began to murmur among themselves, some quietly slipping out the door. The remaining audience erupted in applause, their support for Ethan, Eleanor, and Olivia evident. Victor's final attempt to salvage his reputation came in the form of a hastily scheduled press conference the following day. He claimed to be the victim of a conspiracy, accusing Ethan and Eleanor of bribery and collusion. However, his credibility was shattered, and his audience dwindled to a few loyalists. The shelter supporters, on the other hand, rallied like never before. Donations poured in, volunteers flocked to help, and the community united around Arthur's vision. The mobile clinic, which had been met with skepticism during its launch, now symbolized resilience and hope. In the midst of this renewed momentum, Eleanor received a call from a local news station. They wanted to feature Buddy's story in a primetime segment, highlighting the shelter's work and the clinic's potential impact. It was an opportunity to amplify their mission and solidify their place in the community. During the interview, Ethan shared his journey with Buddy, his voice brimming with pride and gratitude. "Buddy isn't just a dog to us," he said. "He represents everything Arthur stood for: love, second chances, and the unbreakable bond between people and animals." Eleanor added, "This shelter and the mobile clinic aren't just projects. They're a promise to Arthur and to every animal and person who needs a helping hand." As the segment aired, it sparked an outpouring of support, further isolating Victor and cementing Ethan and Eleanor's position in the community. But their victory wasn't without its costs. The relentless battle had taken an emotional toll, and they knew they couldn't afford to let their guard down. One evening, as they sat on the shelter's porch, with Buddy lying contentedly at their feet, Eleanor voiced the question that had been weighing on both their minds. "Do you think it's over?" she asked softly. Ethan stared out at the horizon, the fading light casting a warm glow over the shelter. "Victor's influence is fading," he said. "But people like him don't give up easily. We need to stay vigilant." Eleanor nodded, her hand resting on Buddy's head. "At least we have each other." "And Buddy," Ethan smiled, the weight on his shoulders feeling a little lighter. "And Arthur's dream," he added. "No matter what comes next, we'll keep it alive." Despite Victor Steele's retreat into obscurity, the fallout from his schemes left lingering challenges for the shelter. Some community members still harbored doubts, remnants of Victor's smear campaign. The mobile clinic faced unexpected hurdles, including resistance from local policymakers influenced by remnants of Victor's network. Ethan and Eleanor knew they had won the battle, but the war for trust and stability wasn't entirely over. In response, they intensified their efforts to demonstrate the clinic's value. Weekly open houses at the shelter showcased their work, and mobile clinic visits to underserved neighborhoods became community events. Buddy, the story's hero, played a pivotal role, his gentle presence drawing people in and breaking down barriers. But the tipping point came unexpectedly in the form of a crisis that tested the shelter and clinic's resilience. One stormy evening, Eleanor received an urgent call from Olivia. A nearby industrial site had reported a chemical spill, and the surrounding area was being evacuated. Reports came in of stray animals trapped in the flood zone, their lives at risk as the toxic water rose. "We need to act fast," Olivia said, her voice urgent. "The authorities are overwhelmed, and they can't focus on the animals." Ethan and Eleanor sprang into action, rallying their team and preparing the mobile clinic for its most critical mission yet. Volunteers loaded crates, medical supplies, and equipment, while Eleanor coordinated with local authorities to ensure access to the evacuation zone. As they approached the area, the scene was chaotic. Floodwaters surged through the streets, and frightened animals huddled on rooftops and in abandoned buildings. Ethan guided the team, his voice calm but firm. "We split into groups. Safety first, no risks we can't handle." The rescue mission was harrowing. Eleanor waded through waist-deep water to coax a terrified dog out of a submerged yard. Olivia and another volunteer climbed onto a roof to reach a stranded cat. Buddy, sensing the emergency, seemed to become an active participant, barking encouragement to the animals they saved. But the operation wasn't without its dangers. At one point, Ethan found himself on unstable ground, the rushing water threatening to sweep him away as he struggled to maintain his footing. Buddy appeared beside him, his steady presence giving Ethan the focus he needed to regain balance and save a frightened puppy by dawn. The team had rescued dozens of animals, exhausted but exhilarated. They returned to the shelter, where the mobile clinic sprang into action. Injured and frightened animals were treated, fed, and comforted. The sight of Buddy gently licking a kitten's wounds became a symbol of hope amid the chaos. News of the rescue spread rapidly, garnering widespread attention. Local reporters flocked to the shelter, capturing images of the rescued animals and the tireless efforts of the team. Ethan and Eleanor were interviewed, their words fitting both the urgency of the crisis and the dedication of their mission. "This is why we do what we do," Eleanor told the reporter, her voice thick with emotion. "Every life matters, and will always be here to protect and care for those who can't protect themselves." The rescue operation not only solidified the Esselter's reputation, but also galvanized the community. Donations poured in, volunteers signed up in record numbers, and the mobile clinic's schedule was booked for months. Even policymakers, who had once opposed their work, publicly praised the shelter's efforts. Amid the triumph, Victor Steele made one last desperate move. He filed a frivolous lawsuit against the shelter, claiming that the mobile clinic had endangered public safety during the rescue mission. His accusations, however, fell flat. The overwhelming evidence of the clinic's positive impact left him isolated, his reputation irreparably damaged. In a dramatic court hearing, Ethan and Eleanor presented testimony from rescued pet owners, local authorities, and medical professionals who had witnessed the clinic's effectiveness firsthand. Victor's case was dismissed within hours, and he was ordered to pay the shelter's legal fees. The verdict marked the final nail in the coffin for Victor's schemes as he slinked away from the courtroom. The weight of his defeat palpable. The shelter, meanwhile, emerged stronger than ever. In the weeks that followed, Ethan and Eleanor reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. Sitting on the shelter's porch one evening, with Buddy lying contentedly at their feet, they shared a quiet moment of triumph. "We've come a long way," Ethan said, his voice tinged with wonder. "From losing Arthur to facing Victor, and now it feels like we finally turned a corner." Eleanor nodded, her gaze soft as she stroked Buddy's fur. "It's not just about the shelter or the clinic," she said. "It's about the connections we've built, the lives we've touched. That's Arthur's legacy." Buddy raised his head, as if sensing the significance of the moment, his gentle eyes reflecting the love and gratitude that had come to define their journey. The shelter was bustling with activity one bright afternoon, its courtyard filled with volunteers and community members celebrating the success of the rescue mission. The rescued animals, now healthy and full of life, frolicked around, their joy a testament to the resilience of the shelter's mission. Ethan stood at the center, addressing the crowd. "Today isn't just a celebration of what we accomplished during the storm," he said. "It's a celebration of what we've become together, a family, a community, and, most importantly, a lifeline for those who need us most." His voice carried a sincerity that resonated deeply with everyone present. Eleanor, standing beside him, held back tears as the crowd erupted in applause. Buddy, ever the symbol of their triumphs, barked joyfully, prompting laughter as the celebration continued. A familiar figure appeared at the entrance to the courtyard. Grace, the woman whose puppy Buddy had saved during the storm, clutching a small bouquet of flowers. She hesitated for a moment before stepping forward. The crowd parted, and Ethan and Eleanor moved to greet her. "I just wanted to thank you," Grace said, her voice trembling with emotion. "If it hadn't been for you and your team, my little Daisy wouldn't be here today." Ethan smiled warmly. "We were just doing what needed to be done." Grace knelt to pet Buddy, who wagged his tail enthusiastically. "And you," she said, her voice soft as she looked into Buddy's eyes. "You're a hero." The moment was simple but profound, a reminder of the lives they had touched and the impact of their work. Later that evening, as the sun set and the crowd began to disperse, Eleanor pulled Ethan aside. "There's something I've been meaning to show you," she said, her tone carrying a hint of mystery. She led him to the mobile clinic, now parked at the edge of the courtyard. Inside, the space had been transformed. Photos of rescued animals lined the walls, alongside thank you notes from their owners. At the center of it all was a framed picture of Arthur, his gentle smile a reminder of the vision that had started it all. "This is our tribute to him," Eleanor explained, her voice thick with emotion. "Everything we've built, everything we've overcome, it's all because of his dream." Ethan stared at the display, his heart swelling with a mix of pride and sorrow. "He'd be proud," he said, his voice barely above a whisper as they stepped out of the clinic. A commotion at the shelter's gate drew their attention. A group of children, accompanied by a teacher, approached, carrying handmade signs that read, "Thank you and heroes of the storm." The children had been inspired by the shelter's story and wanted to express their gratitude. They presented Ethan and Eleanor with a large banner, signed with heartfelt messages of thanks and adorned with drawings of animals. One little boy stepped forward, holding out a drawing of Buddy. "He's my favorite hero," the boy said shyly, looking up at Ethan. Ethan knelt to take the drawing, his eyes glistening. "He's my favorite too," he said, patting Buddy's head. As the night fell, the shelter grew quiet, the day's events leaving a lingering sense of fulfillment. Ethan and Eleanor sat on the porch with Buddy between them, their thoughts turning to the future. "We've come full circle," Eleanor said, her voice thoughtful. "From nearly losing everything to building something stronger than we ever imagined." Ethan nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "And it's just the beginning. There's so much more we can do, so much more lives we can save." Buddy rested his head on Eleanor's lap, his presence a silent affirmation of their journey. In his eyes, they saw the spirit of resilience and hope that had carried them through every challenge. As they reflected on the day, a message came through on Eleanor's phone. It was from a national animal welfare organization, inviting the shelter to join a collaborative initiative aimed at expanding resources for underserved communities. Eleanor's eyes widened as she read the details. "Ethan," she said, her voice tinged with excitement, "this could be the opportunity we've been waiting for." Ethan took the phone, scanning the message. A smile spread across his face. "It's perfect," he said. "Arthur's dream is about to reach even further." The climax of their journey was not just about overcoming adversity, but about setting the stage for a brighter future. The shelter had become more than a sanctuary. It was a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of perseverance and compassion. Buddy, ever the heart of their story, looked up at Ethan and Eleanor, his eyes filled with the quiet wisdom of a soul who had seen it all. As the stars lit up the night sky, they knew that their work was far from over. But in that moment, surrounded by the love they had cultivated, they felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. The days following the celebration marked the beginning of a new chapter for the shelter. News of their heroic efforts during the storm spread far and wide, drawing attention from animal lovers, volunteers, and donors across the country. For Ethan, Eleanor, and Buddy, this newfound recognition was not just an opportunity, but a responsibility to continue their mission with even greater resolve. The shelter, once struggling to make ends meet, now buzzed with activity. Volunteers worked tirelessly, inspired by the shelter's story. Donations flooded in, enabling them to expand their facilities, purchase new equipment, and enhance their outreach programs. A new wing was being constructed to accommodate more animals in need, complete with state-of-the-art medical equipment for the clinic. Buddy, the symbol of their resilience, had become a local celebrity. Visitors flocked to meet the dog who had braved the storm and saved countless lives. Children giggled as they petted him, and families shared stories of how Buddy's courage had inspired them. One sunny afternoon, Ethan stood in front of a group of new volunteers, sharing the shelter's story. "This place," he said, gesturing around him, "is a testament to what happens when we come together for a greater purpose. Each of you has the power to make a difference, not just in the lives of these animals, but in the hearts of everyone they touch." Eleanor joined him, holding Buddy's leash. "Buddy taught us something invaluable," she added, "that even in the darkest of times, there's always light. That every act of kindness, no matter how small, creates ripples that can change the world." The volunteers listened intently, their faces alight with determination. For many, this was more than just a cause. It was a chance to be part of something meaningful. As the shelter grew, so did its impact. Eleanor took the lead on a new initiative, partnering with local schools to educate children about animal welfare and the importance of kindness. Buddy, ever the hero, became the program's mascot, visiting classrooms and delighting students with his gentle nature. Ethan focused on expanding their reach to rural communities, ensuring no animal was left behind. He worked late into the night, poring over plans and strategies, driven by the memory of Arthur's unwavering dedication. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan and Eleanor sat on the porch of the newly renovated shelter. Buddy lay at their feet, his eyes half closed in contentment. The air was filled with the soft hum of cicadas and the occasional bark of a dog in the distance. "We've come so far," Eleanor said, her voice tinged with both pride and disbelief. Ethan nodded, "But there's still so much to do." Eleanor placed a hand on his arm, "And we'll do it together." They sat in comfortable silence, their thoughts intertwined with the memories of their journey, the challenges they had faced, the lives they had saved, and the lessons they had learned. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Eleanor turned to Ethan with a smile. "Do you think Arthur ever imagined this?" she asked, her voice soft. Ethan looked out at the shelter, its windows glowing warmly in the darkness. "I think he did," he said, "and I think he'd be proud." Buddy lifted his head as if sensing the moment's significance, and wagged his tail, silent affirmation of all they had achieved. The next morning, Ethan and Eleanor stood in front of the shelter's new sign, unveiled during a special ceremony. It read, "Arthur's Havona, Shelter of Hope." Beneath it was an inscription, "In memory of Arthur, whose dream lives on in every life we touch." The crowd erupted in applause. Their cheers a celebration of not just the shelter's accomplishments, but the spirit of unity and compassion that had brought them here. As Ethan addressed the crowd, he felt a surge of emotion. "This isn't just a shelter," he said. "It's a testament to the power of love, resilience, and community. Every life saved here is a reminder of what we can achieve together." As the story of Arthur's Haven continued to unfold, it became a beacon of hope for animals and humans alike. Its impact reached far beyond its walls, touching hearts and inspiring change in communities everywhere. Buddy, the heart of the shelter's story, remained a constant presence, his courage and loyalty a symbol of all they stood for. Together, Ethan, Eleanor, and Buddy carried forward Arthur's dream, one life at a time. If you were inspired by this story, join us in making a difference. Subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales of courage, resilience, and hope. And don't miss our next story, another incredible journey that will touch your heart and remind you of the power of compassion. Click here to watch now.